Welcome into a Week 18 Giants Hangout brought to you by Crestron. My name is Madeline Burke, joined as always by Matt Sytak and Russ Salzberg. And guys, Giants coming off a huge win, get their first win at MetLife Stadium of the season, putting up 45 points, eliminating the Colts from playoff contention, and scoring the most points this Giants offense has under Brian Daboll as a head coach. We heard Coach talk about it after the game, saying, hey, this is what happens when you've got good quarterback play, giving a hat tip to Drew Lock and the way he played the game yesterday. But Russ, when you look at what we saw from this Giants team and the fight and the will in getting that win, what do you take away from it?
Well, I take away this, Madeline. You just used two words that I was going to use: fight and will. Listen, one win doesn't make your season, especially when you're 3-13. We all know that. We've all lived through that. But the one thing I think all of us here on the Hangout have been consistent with, no matter how bad or, the tough losses have been, the guys never quit. They didn't quit on the field. It looked battered and bruised and ugly at times. And certainly we spoke about practices and in the locker room, they didn't quit. And yesterday was a good example. They didn't quit. And like Dable said after the game, when you get good quarterback play and things are clicking, it all works better. But to me, what I liked about yesterday, and we all know everybody's been talking about, okay, the draft pick, the number one slot in the upcoming draft. Should they tank? Should they tank? I hate the word tank. I don't like it. I think it shows a lack of integrity. I'm not just talking about football. I'm talking about in every sport. I don't ever understand how a fan wants a team to tank. I don't care if it's your team and you can get the number one pick. Sure, I would like either one of the two quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. But to me, the team showed that they still had heart. They were not going to quit. They weren't going to lay down. It's the dog days of the season, and they perform. What did we see? We saw like two rookies. Let's think about this for a second, everybody. You got two rookies. Obviously, Malik going over. He's at 1140. Okay, he's got 104 catches. You have
Tyrone
Tyron
Tracy.
Tracy, who's over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Those are two rookies, over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, and they did that with not one, not two, not three, but four different quarterbacks this season. Like, I'm not putting lipstick on a pig. I'm telling you, that's pretty optimistic to say and to see that how these guys performed under very difficult situations. Malik showed yesterday beyond a shadow of a doubt, as everybody likes to say, he is a dog. DAWG. He exemplified that yesterday. I mean, and let's look at another thing. He's got 1,140 yards receiving, Madeline. He's missed two games besides being beaten up. So, we spoke about negatives this season. Let's talk about positives coming off a positively good performance that the organization, everybody needed, everybody, including us here. We all need.
And becoming the first pair of rookies since 2006, since the Saints, Matt, who did it with Reggie Bush and Marquise Colston. The fact that these two rookies, obviously the 3-13 and counting season isn't what you'd want, but when you look at the building blocks for the future, Matt, that's got to be a positive thing to say, okay, this is the foundation of the team that we are building moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as Russ mentioned, Malik missed 2 games earlier this season due to a concussion. And quite frankly, since he's coming back from that short absence, he hasn't quite looked like that same, explosive, dominant receiver that we saw in the first month of the season. Well, that changed yesterday. Yesterday, we saw that guy, that dog, as Russ mentioned, that the Giants used the 6th overall pick thinking this guy can be a game wrecker. And that's exactly what Malik was yesterday. I mean, his final stat line was it 7 catches, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. And to me, the most impressive part about Malik's game was that 105 of those yards were after the catch, which, coming into the season, in the first month of the season, Malik was getting a lot of comparisons to, honestly, some of the top receivers in the NFL, guys like Jamar Chase, because of that ability to, break plays, like take a short catch and break it 60 yards to the house. And that's exactly what Malik did yesterday.
Well, let me interject there too, because it feels like a lot of the reason he did that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the way that Drew Lock placed the ball yesterday. And Drew Lock, it seems like, played his best game as a Giants quarterback, and he was throwing decisively and with anticipation and giving Malik and the receivers kind of an opportunity to create those yards after the catch moments, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, as good of a game as Malik had, he doesn't have this performance unless Drew Lock plays the way that Drew Lock did. I mean, the performance by Drew Lock yesterday was, and I'm not going out on a limb here, that was one of the best performances we've seen from a Giants quarterback in a long time. I mean, he led the Giants to, was it 45 points, which is the most points the Giants have had since that epic shootout against the New Orleans Saints almost a decade ago. I mean, he accounted for all 5 touchdowns, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground, had a nearly perfect passer rating. The performance by Drew Lock cannot, you cannot overstate how great of a performance that was. It truly was a dominant performance. But just the game-changing ability that we saw from Malik yesterday, that is something that I think all Giants fans should be very excited for. Now, I understand there are plenty of fans out there that are upset about the draft pick. I get it. But at the end of the day, the coaching staff, the players, these are all guys that are coaching, playing for jobs, for their own job, for their future in the NFL. They're not going to just, lay down and accept defeat. They're going to go out there, give it their all, and try to come home with a victory, which is exactly what the Giants did. They won the game. They won their first home game, so they don't have to go down in history as the first team to go 0-9 at home. This is something that everyone inside this building needed to happen, and it was refreshing to see.
Well, and it helps too. I mean, you mentioned how conflicting it was for some Giants fans. A lot of Giants fans sat at home on Saturday watching Cam Ward and Shador Sanders in their respective bowl games all day. And then Sunday, when the Giants win and slide out of that #1 overall pick, it's like, okay, we love to see this positivity on the field, but also, okay, we had kind of consigned ourselves to thinking this is where we were in the draft process. But you know what? The draft works itself out, and seeing this productivity on the field in this fight, especially late in the season, from a team that has, no playoff chances and a losing record, the fact that they still showed up and played for one another in this way says a lot about the culture that they're building too around the young talent. We talked about this week in and week out too this season. The winning the turnover battle is a point of emphasis. Head coach Brian Dable has been batting that down. We have to do it. We have to. First time they did it all season was Sunday, week 17. The opening drive, Dane Belton gets his first interception of the year. They end up with 2 interceptions and a forced fumble recovery on the game, 3 turnovers, and that was huge for this Giants defense as well, Russ, to put the Giants in a position to kind of get the ball back and take control in that way, especially early.
Well, listen, Dave said it, in the post-game press conference yesterday. You heard it, Madeline. I mean, he said he was on lock all week. The difference when you throw 2 pick sixes and then the next week you don't make any turnovers and you're throwing 4 touchdowns, that's a distinct difference. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what went right and what went wrong. That's exactly what they've been striving to do. No, listen, we're not here making excuses. The team had a lot of down moments, especially the first half. The second half, though, I've been a little more patient, mind you, frustrated, but they're a battered and bruised and beaten up team with, backups to backups playing, but they didn't quit. And that is the measure of a team. Athletes are bred to compete. I think you touched on it before. Athletes are bred to compete. From the time they're playing pee-wee football, they're told, okay, whether you win or you lose, you got to go out and do your best. Now, granted, this is pro football. There's a lot of money involved, a lot of at stake, but you have to go compete. And that's what the Giants, the reason I was so happy about the win yesterday, because if you compete and you lose, it kind of gets, well, they didn't do well enough. But they competed and they won. And in light of what all the talk has been about tanking, should they not in the draft, they competed. The bottom line was going out and win the game. And that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this was a matchup between a team that had literally nothing to play for and a team was playing for its playoff chances. Entire season was on the line, and the Giants went and ended their season, ended their playoff hopes. Like that can't be understated. Like this team, as you mentioned, this is not athletes are not meant to just quit and tank. Like the word tank has not been used inside the Giants locker room once
Not
all
once.
season. And if it had been, that would honestly be more of an issue because you don't want that in your locker room. Jermaine Illuminor was speaking to the media after the game yesterday, and he basically said, you can't go into a game basically trying to lose because that kind of instills like a loser mentality inside the locker room. You want to go out there and have a team that is trying to compete and fight and ready to win every single game. So it was great to see the fight in this Giants team yesterday. And in terms of the draft, I mean, right now the Giants sit at the 4th pick. That could change after week 18. They could move up, they could move down. But no matter where the Giants end, the draft will play out how it will play out. If the Giants are, in love with one of the quarterbacks, with 2 of the quarterbacks, there's moves that can be made to put them in a position to try to get one of those guys. Will it cost a little bit more than if you had the 1st pick? Yeah. But honestly, if you have conviction about a guy and you feel great about him, there's no price that's too high to pay to move up to get that guy. So let's see how, the draft order plays out, how the rest of the season plays out before we start getting, so worked up about, the Giants missed an opportunity to draft their franchise quarterback, because there's still a lot that can change in this final week.
Well, and to your point too about players not actually wanting to tank, it's absolutely true, because think about it this way. If you're on a team and you think, oh, I'm going to go out there and lose this game so that they can draft my replacement, or so that they can draft somebody who's going to take my job next year. No. And also, as a player and as an individual, as a coach, you're putting out tape not just to the team that you're on, but to the league to say, this is who I am as a professional athlete. Any opportunity you have to play in the National Football League is a big one. And it's whether it's on a 3-13 team or a 13-3 team, it's one that these players are taking seriously. And they're not going to go out there and just say, oh, well, for the future of the franchise, let's just drop this game. And I think a lot of fans, like you said, Matt, like will kind of cling to that, but it's also important to remember, no, this is their livelihood too. And this is a moment that matters. And especially, when you turn the page to week 18 and you've got a division game on the line, this is one that matters. And even though everything is shored up, Philadelphia Eagles have won the division. They're going to be winning the NFC East this year. They are headed to the playoffs. The Giants will not be in the postseason, but it's still a divisional matchup between the Giants and the Eagles. And there's a lot to play for. There's a lot of pride on the line in this one. You've got Saquon Barkley, who's chasing Eric Dickerson's record, facing his former team again. You're playing at Philadelphia. A lot of storylines in this game. Russ, when you look at week 18, the way that this season will be finishing out, what's your storyline you're
Well, I mean, listen, we're all saying to ourselves, who would have thunk this? I mean, think about it. The Giants are going into Philadelphia against their arch rivals, the Eagles. The Giants are in last place. The Eagles are in first. And as you just said, Madeline, Saquon is going for the all-time single season rushing record. I mean, you want to talk about drama, you want to talk about storylines, and you want to talk about some people are looking at it positively. Let's go do something. You're going to have the naysayers, this and that. You know what could have, would have, should have been. It's a very interesting way for the season to end. Matt, and both of you people brought up Matt, Ed and Madeline, talk about the draft is going to play out the way it plays out. Let's also not forget the team with the number 1 pick, the Patriots right now, they got a quarterback. So they're not looking to draft a quarterback. They have Drake May. He's their future. So, as you say, there's a lot, Matt, a lot of permutations and combinations and things to be figured out. And again, we don't know. I was looking at the thing that the Patriots are home to the Bills and the Titans are home to the Texans. Browns are away against the Ravens, and we know the Giants with the Eagles. So who knows how it plays out? Well, once this coming weekend is wrapped up, then we know exactly where it stands. And again, we've done this before, and I'm not trying to say that there's a Tom Brady out there, but you know what? Tom Brady was picked in the 6th round. Joe Montana, pretty good quarterback, that Joe Montana, was picked in the third round. The guy who's tearing up the league this year, Lamar Jackson, was the 32nd pick in the first round. That
Yep.
guy, Mahomes, not bad. He was the 10th pick. Nobody knows. I don't. To be frank with you, I'll be honest. I don't know all the quarterbacks that are available out there that I've watched closely to say, well, this guy can be this guy can be that. That's up to the personnel department to figure that out. And I know that they've been doing that. So we just have to wait and see. But as far as the Philadelphia Eagles, I was going to say Phillies. As far as the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Football Giants go, it's a heck of a way to end this season.
Yeah. And, I just want to say we have all this talk about, fan sentiment and taking. I understand where the fans are coming from. It's been a frustrating season. Like, I don't want anyone to think that, we're up here saying you shouldn't feel the way that you feel, because you're entitled to feel however you like. But you just have to understand how the team that's inside this building, how they look at the situation. And just from the fan perspective, I'll just put this out there. You look at this past year's NFL draft. Drake May was the third pick, the third quarterback taken. I think Patriots fans are pretty happy with, the quarterback that they've got. Jaden Daniels was the second quarterback taken. Commanders fans are pretty happy with him. Even the
Bo
year
Nix.
before.
Bo Nix has
Bo Nix.
turned around the Broncos, putting them in the playoffs for the first time since Peyton Manning.
Exactly. And he was the sixth quarterback taken. So just because the Giants may not end up with the first pick, which again, they could end up making a trade to get up there. We don't know that. But even if they don't, that doesn't mean that they won't be able to find the potential quarterback. So, understand the sentiment, but let's worry about the draft when we get a little bit closer to draft time. We don't even know how anyone in the front office feels about these quarterback prospects. So to get all worked up now,
Right.
it just seems a little premature. But about this week's game, because there is still one game left on the schedule, I will say this. You guys mentioned the Eagles don't have anything to play for. They're locked into the number 2 seed. The NFC East title's theirs. They could very well end up sitting some of their guys. We don't know. Saquon could go for the rushing record. They could also sit him, play the safe route. It's too early in the week to tell. But one thing that we do know is that the New York Giants have not won a football game in Philadelphia since 2013. That is over a decade that they have not won a game in Philly. You better believe that this team and this organization wants to go and win a game in Philadelphia and break that losing streak with one of their biggest division rivals. So I fully expect to see 110% effort again this Sunday. We'll see what the results end up showing with that effort, but I don't expect if this past week showed anything, don't expect the Giants to just go in there and lay down and accept defeat, because that's not going to happen. This team's going to go out there and fight and try to win a game again.
Sunday is the last time that this group, as constructed as the 2024 New York Football Giants, will be playing a football game together. No matter how many people of the core of this team come back next year, it's going to be a different team in some way. It always is. And I think they know that. And coming off a win like they had in week 17, where they put up 45 points and had a great defensive performance, I think there's a sense of pride for kind of the moment that is and the team that is, and saying, you know what, let's finish strong and let's go into Philadelphia and do our best and try to get a win and finish the season on a high note, because this is the last game of the 2024 New York Football Giants, of everyone that is around this team as constructed now together, and they want to end it on a high note. And it'll be Sunday, 1 p.m. at the Link in Philly, Giants Eagles. And we will let you know how it goes with all of our Giants content, as always, on Giants.com, the Giants podcast platforms. But that's a wrap for the week 18 Giants Hangout, brought to you by Crestron. For Matt Saitek and Russ Salzberg, I'm Madeline Burke. We'll see you next week.